Alright folks, welcome to a new episode of the Movie Dawgs Show. This is Movie Memories, Movie Moments and Movie Memories. The horror edition, folks. Before we get started, be sure to support and subscribe to this channel. Like this video, hit that thumbs up, share this video. Alright folks, well, I'm lucky again to have Mr. Jake Estrada joining me, and he's going to tell me a little bit about his favorite moments and in the realm of horror films, and his memories. You know, like those little moments, like sitting next to your girlfriend in the movie theater, and her, you know, being scared and grabbing a hold of you, and or you know, sitting next to your brother and, you know, as a little kid and trying to scare the hell out of him and everything. So all those little fun moments. All right, well, Jack, we'll have you start off. What was your favorite moments in horror films? Like those memorable scenes.
So, you know, one of my favorite moments in horror films was when we lived out in Philly and we went to this drive-in movie theater over in Tacony, New Jersey. And it was inside, and we went to go watch, I forget which Christopher Lee Dracula movie it was at the moment right now. The Horror of Dracula or something like that with Christopher Lee. And I remember Dracula had just come back to life, and he attacked this woman. And I'm watching that, and telling me my brother Jimmy just came from behind me and put his hands over my shoulders, and I screamed so loud. I was about like 6, 7 years old, and he just died laughing. He's like, "You little chicken shit." And that just takes me back to that. I just remember it was me and my father and my brother. We went and we watched that film, and it was a great time watching that film. And then it was a double feature. They had the Return to the Black Lagoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a great time when we watched those two films in the drive-in. You know, you hardly have those things anymore.
Oh, I know.
Real.
But what's your favorite horror film of all time? I mean, out of all the horror films, I mean, there's so many of them. There's so many iconic characters: Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, The Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon.
All the Universal classic films. I love those characters. You know,
yeah, I'm about to introduce my kids there, so I'm kind of doing it. I'm moving it slowly. I'm doing the monster movies with Godzilla and King Kong, and kind of now working my way into the Universal monster movies. And when they get a little bit older, I'll eventually bring them into the Michael Myers and the Freddys and Jasons and Leatherfaces.
Yeah, those more modern, iconic monster films are still with us. You know,
yeah.
All the classics are still with us too, but they've been done over so many times now. You know, the Draculas, and you know, believe it or not, even the Friday 13th and all that stuff. Well, that's in litigation right now with the rights owners, but.
Actually, I heard that Vic Miller won an appeal.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great to hear. But one movie that sticks with me still to this day, believe it or not, and I can remember it, you know, vividly, is Evil Dead 2.
Yes. Matter of fact, that's the first one I saw, because that's the first one.
That stuck with me to this day so much. And one of the reasons was because I actually watched that with my mother. It must have been late at night. And it's where when Ash got possessed. Mm-hmm. And then he kills he didn't get possessed. His wife got possessed.
Yep.
And she attacked him. And he had to kill her, chop her up.
Yep.
And then he takes her out and he buries her out in the woods. And then suddenly she gets herself all back together. I remember being so scared of that scene. I mean, it was so cheesy, but at the same time, so scary to a young me, you know?
Yeah.
But I couldn't keep my eyes off it. I remember crying my eyes out. And my mom was like, "Why are you still watching it?" Because I have to see this. What happened?
You know, when I first saw that movie myself, I'm like, I don't know to laugh or to be scared. What? I just sat there the whole time like, what am I watching? It's great. I love it. But what am I watching? This is insane. And it was non-stop. It was on. You know, the speed, the tempo never slowed it down on that film at all, and you know that's one of the reasons what makes a great horror film.
Yeah, because one thing after another is happening. You know, he's like, then he gets possessed his hand. He's breaking the plates over his head. Then he has to cut his hand off. His hand attacks him. You know, it's never ending. That movie. It just goes on and on and on. And then the ending. You know, he ends up, you know, back in the past.
Yeah.
And it ends right there. You're like, what? And then it ends.
Now, when it came to the third one, Army of Darkness, and I saw the trailers for it, I'm thinking, is that the sequel to that one movie I just saw like a couple years ago on Cinemax? And it was because, you know, there was some space between the releases of each film, and you know, Evil Dead 2 was, you know, almost no one knew of it unless you're a real horror fan. But Army of Darkness was studio made and, you know, being released through a studio. And
it was so weird because, like you said, it was like that span of time it was released and nobody knew that Army of Darkness was a sequel.
Yep.
You know, and I remember when I saw it, wait a minute, is that part 3 to Evil Dead? How come they're calling it Army of Darkness? You know, and I remember going to the movie theaters with my mother and my sister at that point. I was like, this is a sequel. And I'm like, yeah. And we watched it, and then everyone's like, I remember going to school, and everyone, oh yeah, I saw that movie, blah, 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 blah. But you ever seen part 2? And I'm like, there's a part 2. I'm like, there's part, I'm like, yeah, there's a bigger story today. You gotta see part 1, part 2, you know. And I'm like, what? No, you're full of hot air. And I remember I owned the VHS at the time of Evil Dead 1 and 2, and I showed him, like, look, here.
I have to see, when I told you about buying Creepshow 1 and 2, I also ended up finding Evil Dead 2 on VHS as well, the original release. So, I mean, that day was a good day when it came to finding VHSs to do for Halloween. So, but yeah, for me, God, my favorite moment, got so many, especially going to the movies with my brother, because I always end up getting in trouble when we became more like young adults. My brother and I, we would always get in well, my brother would had a smart mouth, so that got us into trouble, and that found me. And he was the younger brother, so usually it was the other way around. But no, my younger brother would get me into trouble. But I can remember we were. It was Blair Witch Project back in '99, opening day.
Witch, yes.
And we had been, of course, this is, the internet was still fairly new to people. The marketing of the online marketing was so rare at that time still, even though it had been, the few movies a couple years before had been using the internet for marketing. But Blair Witch was born and bred through internet marketing. And I, never was always big on computers, but I was always, when I saw the footage on TV, and then, they would always have the website. So I would go to the local library and I would look up, on the computers about this movie. I can remember we were going there and people were starting to get very rowdy, as they usually do at a horror film. I don't see people really getting rowdy when it comes to when it's a John Grisham movie or anything like that. Or so, I mean, I can't see a bunch of lawyers and everything running around there going and holding up a beer and everything, going, "Woo, Grissom!" But I remember we were watching it and people were getting a little excited and getting a little overexcited, and they stopped the movie. And I can remember one of the guys coming out, one of the ushers, I don't know what he was, somebody whined, obviously. But he comes in, he's like, "Guys, you got to calm down and just, we're trying to, let's watch this movie sensible and, quiet. There's people trying to enjoy the movie." And as soon as he was walking away, my brother kind of goes, I go, "Oh, shit, he's about to say something." And my brother goes, shut up and go sell some popcorn." And I just kind of bury my head like into my hand and everything. And the guy's looking around trying to see. Whole audience, the whole auditorium was just bursting out into laughter and everything. So obviously the guy just left because he was just made a big ass of. But and there's also, I think like the year before, Halloween H2O, which we got us a new Halloween movie coming out.
Yeah. And
I can remember that scene where Jamie Lee Curtis and her boyfriend, played by Alan Arkin, they were going down the hallway, and she's holding that revolver, and he takes it from her and he shoots what he thought was Michael Myers. Ends up it's LL Cool J.
Yeah.
And he goes, my brother, oh my God. He goes, good. They shot the dumb black asshole. And, and I'm like, and I don't know if my brother noticed or not. There was 3 big black guys sitting right next to me. And I'm like burying my head. And I hear snickering. And I look over and those guys are laughing their butts off at what my brother said. And the guy turns around, man, I hate LL Cool J too, man. And they're laughing, and then they're like high-fiving my brother, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, what bizarre world am I living in here, buddy? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy moments like that. And, you know, my brother, you know, he didn't have, and, you know, he wasn't, like, mean to people or anything like that. If he didn't like a person or an actor or anything like that, he'll go out and say it. But he said it like so loud and everything, and I'm like thinking, I'm going to have to kill him as a sacrifice, tell my dad that it was a car accident, just to get my ass out the door so I can live. And so, but I mean, it was you look back on it now and it's funny because, you know, there was, you know, nobody saw offense to it and it wasn't offensive, but I'm just like,
though, man. It's like you think about that, man. It's like some 20 years ago, right? So people were still normal, but these days people are so sensitive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, a different time, man. People were like, "Yeah, man, I hate our guy." See, I love hearing past stories like that. You're like, man, just that people are more like that today.
Yeah, it's true. But I'd love to have seen like a different POV, person, another point of view, of seeing me bury my hand again and like literally trying to like push my hand into my face, you know, and then, you know, me turning around looking in utter shock at these guys next to me, these big guys. I mean, they weren't, you know, they weren't like, no, these were big guys. I mean, these were guys that like should be bodyguards.
Oh wow!
And then they're laughing their ass off at what my brother said. And of course, you know, again, during the scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is with her boyfriend in that movie, they're making out and everything. She's just got a secret to tell you. And my brother blurs out, "I'm really a dude." And again, he's got the whole audience like in his hands. You know, he's commanding the laughter, and he's like, and the look on his face is like, didn't faze him. Didn't have a flinch or anything like that. And he's not trying to laugh or anything. It just blurred out. And it's moments like that you know, he's been gone about 10 years now, but, you know, it's those moments whenever I go to a horror movie now, especially when it comes to a Halloween movie. You know, I've got a Michael Myers mask that I bring with me that's, you know, that's him, that's, you know, me, you know, you know, but when it comes to those memories, man, I mean, I miss it. Yeah. I don't want to go through it again. Because you never know, as you said, you know, some people are, you know, way too sensitive nowadays. But, you know, it's just those moments, you know, just, I'm glad I have them because, you know, they bring a warning, because, you know, that was my brother's personality, you know. He threw those those ziggers and one-liners and zingers, and he was just so good at it. But it made it even more enjoyable going to the movies that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I have to say, I mean, Halloween is my favorite horror film of all time. The original John Carpenter '78 film.
Classic.
Yeah, and I just absolutely love it. But the absolute, I mean, I have to say, but I'm going to go talk about the second one. It was actually Friday the 13th, Part 3. It was the first one I saw, and it was on regular basic cable, which was, the channel was called Channel 44. And they'd have this, every once in a while they would show the Friday the 13th movies. It was, you know, of course, heavily edited. And it was the third one. Sadly, it wasn't in 3D, but my mom and my brother and I were watching it. And I think I want to say I was probably like at least third grade. My brother was a couple years behind me. And I remember us watching it. And my mom was a big fan of horror films and science fiction. But, you know, we were watching it, and, you know, we were all getting into it, like, oh my God, run, 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 run. And you know, my mom was really getting into it. She loved horror films, as I said. But I can remember that night, and this sticks out with me, did not sleep a wink. I stayed in bed next to my mom with my eyes open, looking at that door, looking at the window, a creak, a crack, or anything, or a pop. I turned, I looked. And my brother, God bless him, you know, I said he was like 3 years younger than me at the time, so he had, I think, probably been in at least first grade or kindergarten. But he was having nightmares. But my brother was the type of person that would he'd get up and he'd start shaking his hands and start making noise and grunts and stuff like that while he was still asleep. But he would sit up straight and start, you know, whacking his hand as I hit the camera. But but that was the most. My favorite, with, you know, because it was with my mom and my brother. Both are no longer with me, but that right there, you know, when it comes to Friday the 13th Part 3, you know, that right there sits up there on those memories and those moments that I loved, and it wasn't a bad film. I mean, Part 3 is a little bit of, it's an event film. It's a little generic compared to its original, but you know, those moments, it's really why I think people are so intrigued when it comes to, you know, horror films, because it's something that you share with other people.
That's true, man.
I mean, the first movie that I have to say was the movie that my wife and I, when we first dated, it was our first. I kind of considered it our first official date. It was The Sixth Sense, and I should have known it was Things to Come, because I figured out the movie when it came to her grabbing the check. I figured out what was going on. And I went, ah. And my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she's like, what? You know what's going on now, don't you? You know what's going on. And I'm like, yeah. She said, don't you tell me. And then she was like, well, what do you think? What do you think it's going to be? And she's trying to squeeze information out of me. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. And she's like getting all testy and upset with me. But the best thing is that it was the first. I held her hand that first time that night.
Nice.
So, you know, and that's why, you know, I held that movie very dear to me. So it's, as I said, it's one, as I've always said even before in an earlier video about movie memories and moments, and is that it's the greatest feelings in the world. You know, as I said, you know, my favorite, you know, and I'll say it again, and I'll always say this, my favorite, it's not horror related, but my favorite moment in the theater is when my mom and dad took me to go see Superman 2, the Lester cut. And at the end, of course, in all the Superman movies of Christopher Reeve, you know, flying into the shot, and as he's about to fly off, he smiles directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And my mom, you know, it always chokes me up thinking about it. But my mom leaned over to me and says, "Look, Superman just smiled at you." And for a little kid, when you say that, and he's doing exactly what she's saying he's doing, that's it. You've got, you know, a fan for life. You've got that kid hooked. You know, that kid will always look at, you know, that parent as God Almighty or whatever, you know. And that's one thing why, and movies have always been that thing. People always used to kind of tease me like, oh, go to Billy and Sean, you know, they're the movie experts, you know, and they always seem a little sarcastic about it, but they don't understand. They may not have had that experience or anything like that. They look at movies as just a commodity or something silly to pass time. But me, I see it as an art form. I see it, especially horror film. Horror films is probably, when it comes to horror films, that is the absolute 100% homegrown, like, you know, where people have to come up with a solution to a problem to make that scene work, and that is pure art to me.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm just, you know, I'm always baffled, and I was always willing to learn and research this stuff on how to, you know, I wanted to you know, when we were making our horror film, I wanted the blood to look like it did, and, you know, the first Friday the 13th, and I researched and I found out exactly what type of mixture and how much they put in, the measurements of of all the ingredients to make sure that blood was thick enough like that they used in the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm just, as I said, I'm horror films. Comedies can come and go, even though they're good. And there's, unless it's done right, there's always a horror. Science fiction's left and right, but horror films, I have to say, they're the redheaded stepchild of the film industry. But they are the be all end all of filmmaking. That is the true art form that everybody really wants, and I think that when it comes to great directors have come out of it. Pete Jackson, for one, and Wes Craven. Even though Wes Craven was always notorious for horror films, he made them look artistic. Some of them may still been pieces of crap, but he always was able to take.
I mean, he was a master at what he did.
Oh, yeah.
His original classic, Last House on the Left.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got he made a comedy with Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
Brooklyn.
Yep.
It was horror comedy. So
and
he had a knack.
He even did a drama. It was about some. I can't remember the name of it. It was in the '90s. It had Meryl Streep in it, but he
knew his craft well.
Yeah. And John Carpenter could make what, a $15,000 film or $1,500 film or something like that look like a $30 million film.
Yeah.
Escape from New York was a grand example.
Exactly.
He would take scenes. He's like, oh, we didn't get this shot. Well, let's go in the garage and film it. Like he did, when Escape from New York. And The Fog, some people will look at The Fog as like, wow, this is boring, and it drags. But, that's to get you ready for what's about to come.
Yeah.
And he was really good at the setup. And it always paid off. And the payoff. The setup and the payoff, John Carpenter was so good at doing that.
Yeah.
So, but again, man, I stress, folks, you go up against any horror film, and you look at all the other films that are coming out, all the different type of genres, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to see more of the artistic intensity, of that director flowing through the horror film that he's making than any other film. You're not really going to